Good evening. This is Monday, May 5th, sorry. Happy Cinco de Mayo to everyone. This is the facilities meeting, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Joe Lally.
Thank you. We have two items on tonight's agenda. The first item on the agenda is an update on the CES project. Again, very happy with the way things are going right now. We are on schedule. I am always hesitant to give you any more than on schedule, but pleased with where we are. Again, we're in a great spot as far as the educational wing of the project and getting school ready. So that's what's most important, but we are making really good progress on the district offices also. So just a quick look ahead for the next 2 weeks would be, we have startups of several rooftop units. I'm trying my best to see if we can get the auditorium units started up because we have some concerts in there this week. So we're trying to see if we can get them up and make sure that we can get them running. So we're working on that. We have carpet installed, believe it or not, already on the second floor of the district offices. We'll begin at the end of this week. So doors and ceilings and lights are being finished. And the final painting. So the second floor of the district offices are coming along really well. First floors are in good shape, but we're just, obviously we start up top. Furniture delivery will be 7/7. So right after July 4th is the furniture that comes for the district office. In a perfect world, 2 weeks to, unbox, assemble, and put into place. Maybe another week. Hopefully we'll have Drew working side by side technology with me while we're putting, desk and things in place. But we should hit our target dates. Again, I'm knock on wood, but we should hit our target dates. So again, nothing but good news. Elevator is scheduled to come on the 9th. That's big for us because we got to take things up to the second floor. So the car's coming on the 9th. And again, everything looks to be on schedule. Any questions? See that? That was great. That was easy. All right. So we're going to go on to the second thing, which is just a real quick update of spring break projects. So we did do a lot of work over spring break, and I just feel like I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to praise the work of our staff and what they do and what they organize. So you'll see some of the pictures we have that are up on the screen. So we took time to take care of some stormwater drains that were on Colonial Drive and by the tennis courts that they were old and need of repair, and they probably were about ready to not function properly. So we took care of the actual stormwater drains. And then we did some concrete work that was along Dunbarrow Drive out on Germantown Pike. We did the sidewalk that was along LGI that was, you can see before and afters. We had work done right alongside of the LGI again. That was some cracked and spalling concrete there. And then you see there was tree trimming. The picture was perfect because we trimmed the trees the week before and then they actually bloomed over the weekend. So that kind of really shows their work, though, that you can see they're not growing crazy, but that they came out nice. Some work on the baseball fields by the dugouts. You can see we're just where you're having normal erosion throughout the course of the year. We put this rock climbing wall in the sensory room at RP. We painted the lines on the basketball courts outside here for the boys and girls at Colonial Elementary School. They really loved it. We got a great video from Dr. Rock just promoting that the kids were having fun and all playing basketball as we painted the lines. Rims and new backboards and nets are coming next. We did some split systems, so they're air conditioning systems, very similar to something you would have at your home when we say a split system. So it's like we put them in the locker rooms during smaller areas in the school. So again, it was a good opportunity for our HVAC staff to get involved and to do them repairs. So, there's a rooftop unit, which normally in your house would be just your outdoor unit and your indoor unit. So we did do that work and replace them. Here is the carpet in room 6 at Conshohocken that we had scheduled to replace. We generally do the tear up of the carpet and then we pay for the installation of the carpet. You're looking at just some cleaning work we did here at the restrooms at CES. You can see on the left, that's them with the actual product on the floor, and then we actually give it time to settle in. And then we clean it, so you're seeing the final product on the right. A lot of cleaning. This is the art room. Mark has my big card he can hold up. We had an art room that we moved at PW, and the art teacher was kind enough to get students to sign it and say thank you. as our staff carpenters did the installation of that tile floor. They did a really nice job. Again, just promoting. We have some really talented staff. They do some nice work, and it's nice to promote it. We did do some work and some trim in the auditorium at CES, just because it's wallpaper at the bottom, and that was it. So again, a lot of cleaning, a lot of things that you don't really see all the time, but a lot of good work. We try and take the opportunity to play catch up with cleaning, but most of all, get ahead on this project. A lot of good work went on in the gym here. And again, I know I keep saying how great the gym teachers are, but the gym teachers have been fantastic. And, now we're going to get ready to start painting the gym at the end of this month. So everything's going to kind of start taking, you'll start seeing it on the interior too, where we're finishing up. So, any questions? Mr. Winchester, good evening, sir. You have any questions? You know my number if you want. Okay. All right. That is the last item I have on my agenda this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Is there any public comment? All right, well, the Facilities Committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I'm working on it. Like rap. Like rap. I just want to let you know I didn't lose my mind. I'm still on the. Once I said. So I'm just letting it $1 do it like this. Marco was saying, then you heard that one sugar.
It's the same, but yeah, but
Are we doing annualized or finance?
Mark, you're in this one. Good evening, Monday, March 5th, May 5th. I'm going backwards. May 5th.
It's still Cinco de Mayo.
Calling the HR committee meeting to order. Any public comment on the agenda? Thank you. All right, turn it over to Michelle O'Reilly.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Plant. This evening, there are 2 items on the agenda for the board's consideration, 2 board policies. First is Board Policy 320, reviewed with the intent to have a first reading at the May 15th public board meeting and a second reading and adoption at the June 9th public board meeting. Policy 320 is freedom of speech. This is a new policy with an updated title. PSBA has categorized this policy as a recommendation for us. The policy simply states that our employees are entitled to have freedom of speech as private citizens. However, that if there are circumstances where there are issues of them engaging in speech that is impairing discipline by superiors or harmony of coworkers, having a detrimental impact on our close working relationships, requiring loyalty and confidence, or impeding upon the performance of the duties of the employee that conducted the speech or interfering with operations of the school district, that the board reserves the right to consult with our solicitor and make a determination on how we should proceed in that circumstance. Questions about that policy? No? Second policy for review is Board Policy 342, again with the intent of a first reading at the May 15th public meeting and a second reading and adoption at the June 9th public board meeting. Jury duty, this is a new policy categorized as a legal liability by PSBA. This particular policy outlines that when an employee has been notified that they have been assigned to jury duty, that he or she shall inform their immediate supervisor. A correction needs to be made on this last paragraph where it states that employees called for jury duty shall normally be permitted to serve and not be penalized in any way. The last portion of that states that the monies that they receive, but any compensation received from jury duty in excess of actual expenses shall be credited against such pay. The way that it works is if they are paid for attending jury duty, they deposit the check that they receive for that into their own account, but show proof to the payroll department. And then that money would be deducted from their pay. So the one piece where it says in excess of actual expenses will be removed for the May 15th board agenda for review. Questions about that?
I just had one question that I think is for Mark in terms of, so the credit goes back to what fund? Got it. Okay, thanks.
Let's circle back on the first policy. Is that, I feel like we had a debate. Is there an existing policy that's lateral to that one? I know it says it's a new policy, but I know we covered it when we did political speech, when we did just kind of the.
That was the one that was in the classrooms with students, right?
And even on site.
So we just didn't have any restrictions on speech anywhere before, and now we're adding it.
This is a new policy recommended by PSBA, and to my knowledge, we do not have any other policy that mirrors this one, not for employees.
With political activities,
Right.
not speech, it was political activities, so it was a little more specific than this one.
Okay. So scenario-wise, this would be commenting on Facebook on a controversial issue would count as one of these potential categories?
Depending upon the content, it could.
Okay.
Other questions?
I do have a question about how the jury duty part would work, and I don't want to get too far off into the weeds, but like say for instance, you go and you're there all day, but you don't get selected. Would you, in that case, do you get a check? Or I think it's only after you're selected and you actually serve, but.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I was, I had it twice and I was pretty, quickly said, oh yeah, no problem, you can leave. So I didn't get anything. But still, it wasn't enough time to go, back and do a full day at work. So I was just wondering about that, so.
Other questions? Well, that concludes my brief agenda for this evening.
Any other questions from the board?
A record.
7 minutes.
Any other questions from the board? No? Any public comment? All right, thank you. Then this meeting is adjourned.
All right, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Finance Committee. Are there any public comments on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, turn it over to Mark.
I apologize. Sorry about that. I thought my voice naturally carried. 6 items on the agenda. The first item will be related to the food service department and the upcoming 25-26 school year. We've invited Mrs. McCoy, the food services director, as everybody knows, to educate the board and talk to us about meal prices and the school district meal program for next year.
Yep. Thank you, Mark. So, good evening, everybody. On an annual basis, we take a look at our meal prices to determine if any recommendations to the board would be warranted. And so I want to share some of that information about the process with you this evening. There are several factors that we take into consideration, but first, most importantly, I wanted to stress that we have not increased meal prices since the 2014-2015 school year. So that is, that is a full decade that we've been able to keep prices stable for families, even as the economic pressures have intensified on our end. So I think that's pretty remarkable that we've been able to do that for that time period. We also take a look at how we compare to the county food service prices. And when we took a look for this past school year, our meal prices were below average in most of the areas. Of course, we continue to experience food, supply, labor cost increases. You don't even need to worry about that little chart, because I know you all go to the store. And if you think about going to the store 10 years ago and what your grocery bill was compared to going to the store now, what your grocery bill is, you understand that we're experiencing that same thing. We also did receive word that there's a specific pot of federal funding that was designated for school food service departments that was just recently cut by the United States Department of Agriculture. And of course, we really don't know what's in store for the future financially for school meal programs. However, although our operational expenses are increasing, we also really want to consider the impact that this would have on families. Many families depend on school meals, that affordable price. They know that their child can come to school and for a very low cost receive a healthy, balanced meal. So that does hold a lot of weight. So we really like to balance our fiscal responsibility with that affordability factor for families. And so although I don't have this bullet point on the slide, I did feel like it was really important to share that despite our operational expenses increasing, for many, many years, we've been able to still cover our costs with our incoming revenue. We work hard to try to secure grant funding. We do a lot with involving students in our menu planning and a lot of training with meal presentation and preparation. So up until this point, we've been doing well with covering that. I'm proud to say that we are a self-sustaining operation. We have not had to come to the general fund to ask for contributions or any transfers into our food service fund. So that all being said, and considering those factors, my recommendations to you would be to not request any meal prices across the board. However, it's really important that we consider the long-term financial health of our program. And so in that case, I would recommend considering one small change, which I will try to explain briefly. And that is just reclassifying one of our meals at the high school from a standard meal into our premium meal category. So basically, again, I'll try to keep this simple. It is cut off on the screen, but it was not cut off. I don't have it on. Sorry. I didn't have it on present mode. I apologize. So we have many options at the high school for our meals. We do have one option that is considered our premium meal, because it is customizable, deli area. You can go get a hoagie, a wrap, you can make it into a panini, a melt, salad, et cetera, et cetera. And so because of the higher cost of ingredients for those customizable meals, as well as the increased labor to prepare and to serve that during the line, that meal has always been priced a quarter higher than the rest of the meal. In the past several years, we did implement a hot version of customizable area. It is called Customizable Creations. And so we have a lot of plans to enhance those options next year. But because the costs are very similar to customizable deli station, I would just recommend that we consider moving that as a premium meal price as well. So I did kind of diagram it out on here. This is in board docs if you wanted to look at it on there. But I feel like that's probably the best way to keep the balanced approach between supporting our students and supporting our budget. And by doing this, we're really just coordinating. We're really just taking the two customizable meal options and keeping them consistent at the same price. We're able to cover, what we're just doing is making that price truer to the cost of production. And so therefore, if a student chooses that meal, they would pay more for it and not put the burden on the rest of the student body for our budget. That is pretty much all I have. Are there any Questions?
Lori, I have a question. I don't know if you have the data, and you don't have to have it tonight, just in regards to that customs creations, how often or how much are our students utilizing the custom? Is that only at the high school?
It's only at the high school. And we
Okay.
have about 150 students who obtain meals from that station daily. So if you look at our total meal counts throughout the district, it's about 4.5%
Okay.
of all of our meals.
Thank you.
Just because it's only on audio, just the prices are still $350 for the low ones and $375 for the custom creation and the so
Correct.
I think it's
Yes.
incredibly impressive that that's the meal and what they get.
And that is all inclusive of the entree, the protein, the grain, the fruit, the vegetable, and milk. And the elementaries are 280, remain at 285, and the middle school is 305, and then the high school has those. Yes. Well, believe it or not, we could take a look at that. We go through about close to 25,000 cookies annually, just in the 10 months just at the high school. Yes. Yes.
Lori, could you, I know it's not on the agenda, but could you describe for the board the good news you received this week?
Yes. So some of you may remember last year our district was awarded a Healthy Meals Incentive Award for the category was Innovation in the Preparation of School Meals. We were implementing a lot more scratch cooking, and we were recognized for that. And then we also I just found out we were recognized for another award. This one is the School Lunch Makeover Award, and the criteria was to reduce sodium. And so instead, we focused on our burgers, and instead of using the pre-formed patties that come in frozen, we're sourcing local beef, we're hand pressing our own patties and serving them, and we were able to reduce sodium by 400 milligrams in that burger. And the students love it. What's that? We were really surprised how much positive feedback we got that students really, I mean, the difference, I think the difference is night and day, but for some of the students to, express how much better the burgers were.
So that was a grant?
So that was just it was just something that we did, and then it was an award. We applied for the award for the reduction. But we did have to keep some grants to purchase local in the past years.
I do have just one quick question. Given the uncertainty of the financial future, is there, I imagine you have like a plan B, C, D, if this happens, then this, if this happens, then this, just in case we need to come back to the table at some point? Great.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. All right. Thank you, Lori. Next up on my agenda item is, we just have some housekeeping items tonight in preparation for the 25-26 budget. And the next item up here is a recommendation for administration for the approval of a 4-year contract with Elite Revenue Solutions. We spoke about them last year. Elite Revenue Solutions services the school district as tax collector for Plymouth Township and White Marsh Township. Conshohocken has their own appointed tax collector by the borough, but White Marsh and Plymouth gives us the flexibility to go out and price on a per real estate tax bill and then other supplemental costs. This third-party contractor. We've been working with them for the last couple of weeks, and we feel confident in not just the relationship we've had the last almost 10 years, but also going forward for this next 4-year deal. $2.70 per real estate tax bill. It's $1 for mailing and reminder letters. They put out courtesy reminder letters for anybody that's not paid their taxes 3 times during the year. And then we pay for just actual postage expense. So right now we're recommending a 4-year term, and the contract would be up for approval at the May school board meeting. I want to make sure everybody was aware of this service that we'll be looking to continue with them. And everything's going well with them. And if anybody comes to CES in the summer, Craig, who is one of the representatives, he sits out front in a chair, a little folding table, and he collects the taxes right there. It makes it very convenient for people to come. There are a few. It's very much a minority. Yeah. Colonial used to be in-house going back to 2012, I think it was. It was maintained by a part-time employee. Then when that position, I believe she retired, it just was moved out of house. There's no other questions. That'll move to the May school board meeting. Next item on the agenda is, again, a note of housekeeping. Attached is the operating budget for the Central Monco Technical High School. The Joint Operating Committee approved their budget for 25-26 on April 2nd, and just as a part of our budget, because their tuition for our students for their programs rolls into our budget, we just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to not only audit and question and learn about their programs, but then also approve it for our budget going forward. So if you refer to the attachment, I'll leave that just on board docs right now. Their budget was $11,424,120, which is an increase of about 3.38%. And the proposed Colonial School District contribution for the expenses, plus the debt service on some of their capital projects, increased about $126,000 or 5.99% over the prior year. We're happy to see that it's a much less or smaller of an effect in budget implications. The board recalls last year there was a larger investment in terms of reconciliation. So from myself and Dr. Christian working with Dr. King and their administration, like I said, we're looking at about 5.99% increase, and that's already been factored into our 25-26 budget. So this is not going to have an effect going forward. This is a matter of just procedure and approving their program. Okay. So like I said, that'll be on for the May agenda school board meeting. Next is just a summary. We've talked about this at length during our finance committee meetings as well as our board meetings, but just a summary of our tax rates outside of the millage. Millage, obviously, as we all remember, accounts for almost 80% of our overall general fund operating revenue, as well as the earned income taxes. But then there's also the transfer taxes, the amusement taxes, certification fees that go into part of our overall general operating budget. I'm happy to report that at this time, administration is not recommending the increase or change to any of the supplemental taxes. Act 511 earned income taxes will stay at 1%. Now that gets shared 50% with each municipality. The real estate tax transfer also 1%, again shared with the respective municipality, and the amusement tax rate of 10%, of which 50% is shared with Plymouth and White Marsh Township. Real estate tax certification fees of $25, and the billing dates for these real estate tax bills will go out July 1 of 2025. This is just kind of a quick scorecard review of additional supplemental tax rate. They could be up for consideration for this budget or other budgets going forward, but at this time, we're just looking to remain consistent with prior years. Questions?
Are we the only ones who can set those rates, or can the municipality also decide to change them?
It would be a conversation with the municipality. Okay. Next on the agenda is a summary of our 24-25 budget for current year. We're looking at comparison of current April to prior April. Happy to report that revenues remain strong. 91% overall budget in total revenues have been collected on $158 million compared to the 90.13% of prior year's $150 million budget. Like I said, local revenues basically materially consist of our current real estate taxes, our earned income taxes, which make up about $114 million. You're going to see a little bit more of an expanded set of financials tonight as well as going forward. I just thought in terms of being as transparent as possible, we built in more graphs and really so you can see the actual line items that affect each bucket. If you recall, our three buckets of revenue are local, state, and federal. And the first graphic right here is our local revenues comparison. Like I said, we talked about the current real estate tax as well as earned income. But then you can see the two lagging factors that we're currently battling right now is interest income. Everybody else looked at their own bank account. We're not getting 5.5%, 5.7% anymore, probably closer into the low threes personally. But we work with our financial institutions. We're somewhere around 4.1, 4.2. And just because of the sheer drop in rates, you can see interest income is trailing about $500,000 at about $3.2 million. Still strong in terms of the overall line item, but less than prior year. Overall, 4.3% in growth in local revenues. State revenues, you can see here, again, in the effort just to be as transparent as possible, here's all of our line items that make up our state revenues, from basic education all the way through to retirement contribution. Now, if the committee recalls, the PA retirement contributions are only a factor of us paying and investing in the salary of our teachers. If we pay less out, less revenue comes in. It's essentially a subsidy. It's not basically a revenue lineup. This is how we account for that contribution. And like, as you can see, 7.09% year-over-year growth being driven predominantly by the rental payments, which is our subsidy payments on some of our VOTEC debt, as well as the charter school transition, which was a new line item of $76,000. So we'll continue to monitor state revenues, but we expect all those to come in within expectations and budget for 24-25.
Sorry, Mark, can I ask a question?
Sir.
So the PA retirement contributions, it's basically we're splitting the cost with the state, so it counts as a revenue because they're matching what we're putting in?
Correct, at 50%.
Okay. Got it, thanks.
Yep. Mm-hmm. You could make the argument that it should be shown, the expenses should be shown net of that reimbursement, but PA state accounting code wants it shown gross. Every dollar you pay out, you show gross, and then the revenue that they contribute back to us in the form of a subsidy payment just gets recorded at gross as well. So again, the only way that dollar would change is if either the reimbursement rate of 50% changed for Colonial, or we invested or decreased our exposure in salaries for eligible employees. There are certain line items such as longevity stipends and certain types of severances that are not PSERS eligible. So therefore, we don't pay the PSERS on it, and therefore we don't get the money back. So it's not really necessarily a one-for-one, because there is some dollar line items. So if you look at our salary expense and you multiply that by the 0.339% in PSERS rate and then multiply that by the reimbursement, you're not going to tie directly back to that number. So.
Mark, 2 quick questions on that previous slide, please.
Yep.
One is just clarifying the fee of student-teacher support. That's the student-teacher stipend.
Student-teacher stipend, $10,000.
Is that eight students at 10,000? Okay.
I apologize. No, I believe that is 6 students because there was 2 semesters, and we had students overlapping each semester.
Great.
Yeah.
And then can you just help me understand charter transitional, the new item that you just spoke about? Can you just talk a little bit about what that means?
Yep. So during the development of the 24-25 budget coming out of the Commonwealth, Shapiro in the 23rd hour came out with a charter school transitional subsidy. It basically was to provide support for school districts that had students going to charter school. And it was based off of a formula of 8% of your prior year average three years of charter school tuition. So if we paid, obviously, if we paid $3 million in our charter schools, 8%, they came up with a certain formula to provide some relief for a school district. That was done in the 23rd hour, very late coming out of the Commonwealth. We did not budget for it at the time because it was kind of one of those things that was probably a concession between the both of the political parties. We're looking at about $157,000 for that line item for 24-25. That's $76,000 just represents the 50% down payment on the subsidy for that.
And
fast forward to now, when we're talking about 25-26, that is not in Shapiro's budget right now. He is not allocating, the total pot was $100 million that he allocated. Right. For 24-25, and that is not being repeated right now for 25.
And is this the same or different than what was spoken about previously around the cyber charter returns to district?
Different.
Okay.
Slightly
Thank
different.
you.
This is based on overall
This is just
costs.
overall
the
charter
cyber
transition.
charter costs were to try to cap it at the regular education rate plus 8,000.
Got it. Thank you.
The last line item in terms of revenues, again, is our federal revenues comparison. And as we've talked about, the American Recovery Plan ESSER funds of $1.6 million for the current year compared to last year's $500,000 roughly is the largest driving factor of our federal revenues when we look at year to year. I'm happy to report we did just come out of our monitoring and the federal government audit of the ARP ESSER's findings. they were very pleased with not only just our operations and how we spent the money, but then also our control. So as far as Colonial School District's considered, we are 100% wrapped up and closed up for that grant. We appreciate the federal government support with that, but we don't expect that money going forward, and we've accounted for that as such. On the flip side, obviously we have our other side of the ledger, wages all the way through down to other use of funds. And you can see that wages and benefits, again, very much in line with budget as well as expectations. Those two line items represent almost 72% of our overall school district expenditures. I'm going to skip professional services for now and just make our way down to property services all the way through. Everything else in line from line 400 to 900, again, is either in line with expectations or within budget. If you look at object number 8, other objects, this object line item equates for not just dues and fees, but then also interest expense and real estate tax assessment appeals. Two factors having a favorable variance in terms of that line item, $6.2 million compared to $6.9 million last year, is one, the refinancing of the 2018 general obligation bonds. We're able to save about $200,000 in interest expense this year. And then as well as currently, knock on wood, our successful defense of tax assessment appeals to date right now. We're still making our way through them right now, but right now we were about $600,000 in the red in terms of assessment appeals last year, and we're right around like $200,000 or $300,000 this year. So savings on assessment appeals, savings on interest expense is creating a very favorable variance on that line 800. The line 300 professional services, this is something that, that will be a very much a common topic. From me, that is our investment in special education. That is our one-to-one aids. That is our charter school expenditures. That is also our board-approved legal settlements related to special education and due process hearings. It's also the attorney fees, not just for our side, but then obviously for the appellate side, the family of, obviously the family on the other side of the due process. So as Karen Burke and myself have, talked to the committee in terms of expenditure with that line item, that's where we're seeing the most stress right now. And those are just unfunded mandates coming out of these IEPs that we are required to invest in. So that right now we're having a little bit of stress there, but I'm confident in the fact that our local revenues are strong enough to maintain that type of investment from a 300 object for professional service. You can see right now we're at 17.6%. We also, like we talked about last month, we also are a little ahead of our 500 object. We paid a few of our contracted services for transportation to first student on time compared to last year when they were delayed in getting us our bills, but I expect that line item to flatten out. So overall, 17.67% of excess revenue over expenses. We landed about $750,000 in surplus last year. I'm not saying that we're going to exactly land on that number this year, but I'm confident that we're going to be within budget. There might be variances between line items, but I think we'll be okay. One of the last slides is just how we look at in terms of where is our money going from instructional standpoint, support services, and then the two other line items. And again, very consistent from that instructional line item. 58.2% of every dollar we spend goes directly into supporting the students from an instructional standpoint, and then 30.7% of every dollar goes right into supporting those students and our operation. The other two line items are community services, which relate to our athletics or our extracurriculars, and then other use of funds is our debt service payments, interest expense, principal, as well as transfers to other funds. So. And then again, just our brief explanation of each of the objects. Any questions on the 24, 25 look right now? Okay, great. And then last item on my agenda, again, is just more of a advertisement to get it out to anybody listening or anybody in the public of our 25-26 budget. Apologize, it's not coming up on the screen right now, but what you would see there attached to board docs is, again, the budget for 25-26. At a tax increase of 3.18%, bringing our 25.678 millage to 26.495, and also use of $1 million fund balance. At this time, recommendation from the school district administration is to maintain those numbers. We did, if the committee recalls, approved the proposed final back in April, and now going towards, as we make our way towards the June school board business meeting, that's when we'll look to approve the 25-26 final proposed. But this is more just a reminder of where we are, where we came from, and we have no intentions right now of moving off that 3.18% and $1 million use of funds. That concludes my agenda tonight, Mr. Carver.
Thank you. Any public comments on tonight's meeting? Okay, any board comments? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.